I'm Eliza Wood, this is my channel, and let's talk about medieval cosplay. Okay, so when I'm saying medieval cosplay, I'm talking epic fantasy, I'm talking the OG, the father of epic fantasy, the Lord of the Rings. Technically the Hobbit, but the Lord of the Rings is still part of the world. I have already made a few dresses from the Lord of the Rings, mainly Arwen's dresses. I have the riding coat, the morning gown, the coronation gown, and the battle dress, which I did horribly, so I'm not even going to show that one, and also the dream dress. But I was at a con several months ago where I joined the cosplay contest, and the judges were people who wore their own designs, and I loved the idea of making my own design for something that's Lord of the Ringsy. So I decided I'm gonna design a dress. Now this is my first one, so I'm gonna go simple. I'm gonna try to pick something that won't be too hard, something that exists, just maybe gender bend it. Let's do Aragorn's coronation outfit. That's simple, right? Okay, ignore my drawing. It's not that good, but it's a lot. So right now we're gonna do it in parts. So we're gonna start with a medieval-ish gown. So I say medieval-ish because this is a fantasy movie, so it's set in kind of medieval times, but also costumers aren't going to use the exact dresses that they wore in medieval times, and therefore it's just not going to quite match what it would if I were to use historical medieval patterns. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to make a historical-ish medieval dress. For just, right now we're just doing the undergown. But before I get run away with that whole stuff, we actually gotta figure out what part are we actually working on. What I'm gonna work on first is the undergown. If we're looking at Aragorn's coronation outfit, we will see that he has a red shirt on. Now it's hardly visible, even though it goes down to his knees, but I'm going to make the undergown that kind of red color. I researched a little bit, and there were three kind of fabric that might have been used on royalty at the time period. The three kinds are silk, velvet, or brocade. Now, velvet is way too hot. I live in the southern states, right by the equator, and even though this thing's gonna be in February, and by this thing I mean I'm trying to join a cosplay contest with this dress, so even though it's in February, I will die of the heat. So we're gonna avoid the hot velvet as much as possible. There's gonna be velvet in it, but not the dress that's right against the skin. I have learned my lesson with Arwen's two gowns that I made out of velvet and polyester. I am always dying in those dresses. So we're gonna start with something else. Brocade, I think, is too complicated. It's not bad, but this is an underdress that's supposed to be just a shirt that he would have worn. So brocade's just kind of meh. So I'm thinking silk, but I'm poor. So I'm gonna have to go with all polyester, and yes, I realize that kind of defeats the purpose of not having velvet because it's hot. But we're gonna do our best. And I already ordered the fabric, but I haven't opened it yet. So I'm actually gonna look at it right now. Okay, this is my fabric. There's 8 yards here, and I actually ordered 4 more, but they wouldn't do it in 12. They only did it in eight or less. So I had to order 8 and then 12, 8 and then 4, and then they came separately for some reason, but whatever. All right, so this is a Joann's fabric. I will link it below, but I'm not really sure if it's actually going to show up because it did say it was last chance to buy it when I ordered it. So I'm not sure if it was going out of like they weren't going to make it anymore or if it was just last chance to buy it at the sale that it was at. So I will link it, but I'm just not sure it'll be there when. All right, so this is the fabric. I will get closer. This is the inside of the fabric, which I actually really like the inside. So I might actually wind up going with the inside of the fabric rather than the outside. But I will at least show you both sides. Okay, that is the correct side of the fabric. So this is what would look like the silk fabric. It's pretty. Yeah, it's actually dark outside, so I might look at this in the daylight and just make my decision on what side to use later on. But that's my fabric. And now that we have that, we can move on to the mock-up process. Oh, by the way, I got a new microphone. I'm not really sure how it's doing because this is the first time I've ever used it. I'm hoping it's going well. But I got it in the midst of this filming process, so I'm going to be using it off and on during the filming process. I apologize for the difference in audio while I try to figure this out. Okay, now we can move on.
All right, so it is the morning of my self-imposed deadline. I'm supposed to be posting this video at noon. I have not filmed the reveal for the red dress, and my editor is hard at work editing the film. And I realized that I am missing some of the film. So here we are. I have really quickly put on my makeup, so you'll have to forgive the utter travesty that is my makeup so that I could film the red dress. But now I have to stop and take care of these things so my editor can continue working while I am filming. And I'm in my bedroom right now because my lawn guy is here. And you know how it is. Nobody wants to film in front of somebody who could randomly see you through your window, who really doesn't care at all what the heck you're doing. They just want to get their job done. But you know what? It's the feeling of the thing. I don't actually remember what I was supposed to be filming though. That's right. Okay. Inspiration. So I have a few things for inspiration. Of course, we have Aragorn's coronation outfit, but we also want to take some other inspiration from the movie so that we don't just kind of make it out of thin air. So a couple things. First and foremost is Aragorn's red shirt. Not the one he's wearing in the coronation outfit, but the one that he wears for the majority of the movies. This is because I don't want a turtleneck. So that one is my general kind of, this is what he would wear and what he is comfortable in. So there's that one. And then also there is Frodo's shirt from Gondor and also Aragorn's blue shirt. But those ones really I just wanted to do the smocking. Other than that, I also wanted to take inspiration from at least one dress from The Lord of the Rings. Arwen's dresses were not what I was looking for. I love her dresses, but none of them really were exactly what I was looking for. Not to mention they're elf dresses and not human dresses. So if we're going to look at a human from The Lord of the Rings, you know we got to look at Éowyn. So what I decided after looking at all her dresses, all of them are very pretty and very distinct. But the one that I thought would work the best is her blue dress that she wears the night that they're celebrating in Rohan? I'm not sure if they're in Rohan or Helm's Deep. But anyway, they're celebrating, and she's wearing that blue dress, and that is the one that I decided to use as inspiration. And then, of course, we gotta look at the medieval dresses on YouTube. So there's a couple of people that I go to constantly for historical videos, and that's Bernadette Banner, in which she makes a 15th century red dress, which is very pretty, and I used that one a lot as inspiration. And then also there's Morgan Donner, who made a kirtle, which I specifically am going to mention later, that I use that one as a reference when drafting this dress. So that's all of my inspiration, so we can go ahead and get on to what I've actually filmed when I was supposed to film it. Forgive my appearance. I'm starting to have an allergic reaction to my makeup, so I had to take it off. That's why my face is all red. But before we start making our draft for the red dress, I need to take measurements. And my measurements are always changing because I'm always wearing different structure pieces to all my corsets. So I can't use my measurements that I've used in the past. So I went ahead and I put on the corset that I made, which is my structure piece for this cosplay. If you are curious as to how I made this corset, you can look at some of the previous videos. They should be linked in the description below, and I'm also making a playlist with all of the pieces that go to this costume. So the most important measurements are going to be my bust, my waist, and my hip, though my hip's not gonna have changed because it's below the corset. So, but do I remember where I put down my hip measurements? Not at all. So, still gonna take those measurements. All right, so, gonna go right. I'm gonna take my actual bust, which is, I always like to take a big breath just so that it's at least at the edge of what I will need it to be. This is 48 inches. Whenever you're doing measurements for your bust, if you are bigger than a B, sometimes a C, you also should take your over bust. I am much bigger than a B, so I'm also going to take my over bust, which is 42. And I'm saying these out loud because later I'm gonna watch this video and write them down because I forgot to bring a book. And then we're gonna do my waist, which I don't have to breathe for this one because my corset is keeping my waist exactly where it's gonna be. It's not gonna move from here. So we're gonna go with 37 3/4. Why does it have to be 3/4? Because it wants to make my life difficult, that's why. All right, and then we're gonna do my hips, which is gonna be a little bit harder to see. I'm always a little confused as to where to do my hips. Like, there's multiple places that I think that the hip can be done. So there's kind of where your hip juts out, which is right here for me. And then I've got a little bit of the hip dip, which is about right here. And then if I go a little bit lower, I'll get the actual, get right where my butt is. So I'm hoping that I'm taking the hip measurement in the right place, but honestly, I don't know. So, okay. We're gonna go with 49 3/4. Now I'm sure there's some other measurements I'm gonna need, but I don't need to be wearing the corset for them. So I think I can go ahead and use those measurements for now. I might use a pattern, and if I do, that'll be all I need. But if I actually decide to draft something, I'm gonna need more measurements. So we'll see how that goes. This one I am pretty sure that I actually filmed, but I cannot find it anywhere. So I'm pretty sure it got deleted, unfortunately. So since I lost the film of it, I'm going to have to explain to you that I drafted the bodice of the gown based on Morgan Donner's video of how she drafted her kirtle. Of course, I'll link this as well as any other YouTube video that I mention down in the description below. But unfortunately, if you want to know how to draft the bodice of this, you're gonna have to go and watch Morgan Donner's video, because I have somehow, some way, lost my version of it. Boo. So I knew immediately upon putting these pieces together that they were not going to fit correctly. So I didn't even bother sewing them. They're held together with pins and a prayer. And yes, those pins are pointed right at my arm because I'm smart. But I just thought I would put it on and kind of try to put some darts in and make this thing fit a little bit better, because I clearly did not measure my bust correctly. Actually, I might have measured my bust correctly. It's just not sitting right. Anyway, I'll play with it a little bit. Unfortunately, I don't have a stand for my camera at the moment, so I'll play with it for a little bit and then check back with you. Alright, so I've addressed a couple of the really big issues. First of all, this neckline was way too wide, so I went ahead and put a dart in here. This pattern piece is still going to be flat, but this allows me to know how to cut the neckline so that it won't be so wide. And then because I did that, the front also moved, but honestly I think this was too curved anyway. And then a big issue that I was having is actually that my waist was in the wrong place. So this is where I was thinking my waist was, and this is where my waist actually is. So I went ahead and drew a line that's gonna take that to cut off for that waist. And then what I'm gonna do, this is still not fitting correctly, but if I do too many adjustments right now, it's just gonna be too much and I'm not gonna know what I did wrong in the end, and so it's just easier to cut out these adjustments and then try again with a new set of fabric that maybe will fit a little bit better, and maybe try to find my iron, because I still can't find it, which is why this one is so wrinkly and it doesn't look good. So we'll see. I should show you both sides. The back I think is fine, except for the fact that it is too long. Surprisingly, I did a really good job of guessing where exactly to put the back, the lower back. So you can see a bit of the corset, but I think that's just because the sleeve's not sitting right. I might broaden the back sleeves just so you don't even have that risk. But other than that, I'm pretty happy with the back. It's really just the front that's gonna be an issue. I haven't decided exactly how low I want the neckline, but I figure that's a good place to start just for now, and then I can see what I want. So that's the first mock-up done. Okay, so I couldn't find my iron, but I did find some fabric that's a little less wrinkled, so hopefully that'll be okay. But we had to get our gratuitous Baron shot in anyway. So I went ahead and I made all of my corrections on the paper pattern. Yes, that is wrapping paper. I have a whole bunch of it, and I figure it makes life easier just to use that as my drafting paper. And then I drew it onto this fabric. My lovely, darling assistant, you are kind of in the way. And then when everything was traced, I went ahead and cut everything out with my rotary cutter. I didn't really care about how much seam allowance I was adding because I was gonna pretty much put it on each side anyway. But I did go right up against the line for both the neckline and the armhole because I thought that would make life easier. I wouldn't have to be guessing where those things landed. For the neckline, that worked really well, but for the armhole, I did forget that I was putting sleeves on this bodice, so I should have left the seam allowance on the armhole. And And then because I was too afraid to sew everything together and then hate it, once again, I pinned everything together for this mock-up. But this time I made sure that the pins were pointed away from my arms.
All right, here's mock-up number 2. It fits better. I definitely think the side needs to be taken in a bit just to get it to fit a lot better. The back fits very well. Um, the bun, the the front is a little loose, but that's gonna happen either way because there's nothing I can do except to put a dart in here, which I'm trying to avoid. So it's just gonna be loose in the front. Um, but I can get rid of some of that looseness by taking in the sides by a little bit. Also, I can clearly see that my armhole looks horrible, but I was kind of expecting that when I was editing it because I was just like, yeah, no, this isn't gonna fit right. So I'm gonna need to. I forgot my Sharpie in the other room, so I'm gonna have to go grab it and um, make some markings to try to take this in a little bit. But otherwise, I think the front looks good, the back looks good. It's just the sides that are needing some work. And then once I've got the top portion done, I might actually be able to sew it together so that I can put on the bottom portion with the skirt and the sleeve. All right, so I tightened it a little bit. I think I got it pretty good at the bottom. It's still a little loose, gives me a little bit of ease, and I'm really happy with that. However, I did definitely get it too tight at the top. But I think it's good enough that I can sew it now and I can move on to adding the bottom bits on. I do have to cut off the armhole. I did draw, I don't know if you can see it that well. I drew a little line here and it looks like I'm probably gonna have to put something there. Hopefully I'll be able to still do that with a flat piece, but I'm not sure. That might have to be a dart. Unfortunately, when you have a big bust, you have to have darts if you want it to be fitted. So we'll see if I can get around not doing a dart there, but I might just have to do a dart. So I think that this is good for the pinned mock-ups. Now I can start actually like putting together the full mock-up because I think the bottom piece, I think I already have a fitted version of the bottom piece. I just got to cut off the bodice because I had a bodice that was on it. I also think I'll probably widen the neckline just a little bit so it follows more the line of the corset. I like how it is here, like I like the height, but I think I want it a little bit wider so it follows the line of the corset rather than doing this kind of small U. All right, let me see if I can't put together a whole dress. Well, short dress, because there's no way I'm putting together the whole skirt. Okay, should be able to hear me now. Okay, so it's a new day and I'm struggling to get the mock up right. I am happy with the top portion of the bodice, but now I have to make the fitted portion of the bodice along with the skirt, which the skirt I'm not too worried about. It's just volume. So the skirt is not the end of the world, but it's really that fitted part that I'm a little concerned about. So I'm kind of putting it off, which is why I'm currently dressed for TikTok rather than for working in my sewing room. But the other thing I'm kind of struggling with is I really wanted to smock the sleeves, like Frodo has smocked sleeves when he wakes up in Gondor, and I believe that Aragorn's blue shirt has smocked sleeves, and that's just the shoulder, but it is still smocked, which I wanted to also do. However, I didn't realize that a smocked sleeve requires 3 times the width in order to bring it down to what a smocked sleeve should be. So I'm kind of meh, I may or may not do that. I went ahead and made a mock up of the shape it would be if it needed to be the 3 times. I should probably go ahead and make a mock up of what it would need to be if it was not the 3 times, just to see how they're going to look overall. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Also, I should mention, if you're curious about my TikTok, I do have a link to it as well as my Instagram down in my description below. It might be through Linktree, but it will be down in the description.
So then we're going to sew everything together of the bodice, and we're also going to sew some zigzag lines into my sleeve piece, and then we're going to pull all that together to try to fake some smocking, because I didn't feel like putting all that work in if I wasn't even going to like it.
Okay, so I tried to fake smocking the shoulder. I think what I did was actually closer to shirring, though I'm still pretty sure I didn't do that correctly either. And I'm I think if I had more time and was able to perfect this, I could get it to work and it would look really pretty. But honestly, I'm not willing to risk not being able to finish something later so that I can finish this. If I can't finish this, then um and honestly, I doubt he wears this when he's wearing his nice clothing anyway, so I'm just going to go with a regular sleeve. So let me go make that.
Okay, so now we're going to work on making the draft of the sleeve. And despite my efforts, this is a horrible angle, and I was stupid and put it on the side of the wrapping paper that has reflective material on it, so you can hardly see what I'm doing. But I will say, once again, I did use Morgan Donner's video about how she made her kirtle to inform how I am drafting this sleeve. So probably you should go look at that video to see how to draft a sleeve, because this one apparently fails.
Gotta love when you film a whole thing and then you realize your microphone's not on, so it didn't have any sound. All right, so here is my sleeve. It's too tight. It's a good length, but it is too tight, so the ease is, I need more ease to it because as you can see, it's pulling down my shoulder. And on this side, you can see my shoulder, if it's sitting correctly, actually covers the strap, although it doesn't in the back. So I'm going to have to make the back neckline a little bit wider just so that I can go ahead and hide the straps in the back and I won't have to be fixing them constantly. But on this side, the shoulder is definitely pulling, which is not a good thing. So I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit. Also, the shoulder didn't quite fit in the neckline. The sleeve didn't quite fit. It was a little tight, so it didn't quite fit into my armhole. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and make it just slightly slightly bigger, and hopefully that'll help whatever the issue is that's causing this pulling.
But before that, I've been putting off this skirt for far too long, so I need to go ahead and mock up the skirt portion of this dress. I know that I said that I had some dress already drafted from my morning gown underdress that I was going to use for this dress. However, I was stupid when I made that dress, and I did not in any way label it. Like, I have no idea which of those pieces is the center front, the center back, the side, or anything like that. And I also didn't mark my waist, so no idea where that is. But that's neither here nor there. I am going to go ahead and make a mock-up anyway. Probably was going to do so anyway because I like to make my life difficult. So what I'm doing here is I'm kind of actually mocking up based on what I would do if I was making a modern corset. So I have my center seam. Hello, Luthien. I have my center seam, and then I marked out, I think I have 2 seams in the front and 2 seams in the back, and I went ahead and took out however much I needed to take out from the front and the back. Now in this instance, you really should know how much room you have in the front, as in if you were to take your waist measurement, what is your waist measurement from the side seam in the front to the side seam in the back, and same for the back measurement, and the bust and the hips. So that way you can take, if you need to, you can take more out of the back, which in my case I needed to do that, and not take it out of the front, because then your side seam would be shifting based on where you take the space out of. And here are all my pieces. I think I'm going to have the back pieces extend more, and the front pieces are just going to fall straight down, but I will be adding, I think they're called gores or godets. I'm not really sure which one it is. And then I'm going to copy my skirt pattern onto this piece of mock-up fabric, which I have a very weird amount of, so I'm just doing my best to make sure I can fit as much pieces as I can onto it. I think I did actually have to grab another piece that I was going to have to use. But as you can see, my center front and my center back were done on the fold, and then everything else was just done wherever it could be on this piece of fabric. My executive producer over here is judging my mock-up fabric that I chose because it's so wrinkly. I swear I'm looking for my iron.
Alright, so I think last time I put on my sleeve, I actually put it on the wrong side. So there was a seam in the front here when I think it's actually supposed to be in the back. So I went ahead and put it on the other side this time after loosening it a little bit. I did actually wind up loosening it too much, so there's a bit of wrinkling you can see on my shoulder there. So I just got to take out a little bit there. The shoulder is a little tight, but I don't know if you can see, I actually forgot to leave a seam allowance on the shoulder. So I had to stitch this shoulder a little farther in. So it's actually too tight up here. So I'm thinking that might be hopefully why it's pulling like this. I'm really hoping that I'm not going to have to get rid of my low back, because that's unfortunately what it's looking like I'm going to have to do, because there's nothing keeping my shoulder up and my sleeve keeps tugging it down. So but the skirt is actually looking really good. For whatever reason, it's fitting better on this side than it is on this side. Like the seams are matching up and everything. So I'm going to use this side um, when I finish my mock-ups and all that. But I'm really happy with it, and I think I'm going to put a pocket right here. Maybe here, probably here. Yeah, put a pocket right where my seam ends. On both sides, of course, and then I'm going to put some gores, probably starting where the seam ends, just to make the skirt a little wider. But I am a risk taker who doesn't feel like waiting any longer. So I think that this mock-up is good enough. So I'm going to move on to the actual fabric and hope that I don't die inside because I don't do it correctly. I'm gonna be a floor goblin, because this dress is too long to fit on any of my tables. So, yeah. But I have decided that I'm gonna use the other side as the outside of the dress. So I'm gonna go ahead and draw my pattern pieces on this side, the wrong side. I am an idiot. So I put half an inch of seam allowance into my fabric because I was like, okay, I need to have enough seam allowance that I can make mistakes and everything will be fine and it'll be fine. Well, I was looking at my little thing here and I was like, 5/8 of an inch, that's not what I want. It must be this line right here. That must be half an inch. And then, after seaming through the whole top part and part of the skirt, I realized 5/8 of an inch is bigger than half an inch. So I have to go back and undo everything I've done so far and then re-sew it. So I'll probably sew on the half inch and then undo the stuff just so I don't have to repin everything. But gosh darn it, that's annoying.
Even worse, I can't find any of my seam rippers or my little scissors. So now I get to use my big sewing scissors to try to take out all these stitches.
Alright, after my huge setback, I am about halfway through sewing together all of my pattern pieces. I really wanted to finish today, but it's 9 o'clock now. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go get me some ice cream, get some sugar in my blood, and maybe some dinner because I haven't eaten dinner yet, and then get back to work. Alright, so we have a skirt. It's not great looking right now. It definitely needs a steam or something or other, which is why I'm currently in the bathroom so that I can take care of that. But it's going to take a minute for that to happen, so I wanted to go ahead and give an update before I allow this to steam and I go outside and mow the lawn. So, this is the front. I'm not super fond of the godettes right there and right there. I think if I were to make this dress again, I would probably not put those in. I'd probably just keep a straight line in the front and just have them in the back. But this is the front of it. It could also be that I'm just not liking it because of the way it's pulling. So once it's ironed and steamed and all that, maybe it'll look better. But right now, not a fan. And that's the back. On the other hand, I do really like the back. Um, I wish that I had done a better job of measuring. I don't know how I managed to do this, but I had 7 inches supposed to be, but each godette was supposed to start 7 inches down from the waist. But as you can see, here's one godette. Oh, nope. There's one godette start, and there's the other godette start. So I have no idea how I did that, but pretty much the entire skirt just kind of has them randomly throughout the thing. So not really happy about that. Um, but that's what happens when you willy-nilly do things like that. The other issue that I have is that godettes are triangles, so you're supposed to make a straight line. Well, that one is too short. Like, this dress was supposed to kind of sort of drag, like it's supposed to look like that, but with that godette there, it's not going to drag. At least it doesn't look like it'll drag. I'm not really sure if my mannequin is the right height and if the skirt is at the right part of the mannequin, but it is a little irritating. I should have done like more of a curved bottom, but we live and we learn. Also, I had decided that I didn't really want this dress to drag too much because the cape's gonna drag. And I'm gonna be wearing this at a very, very busy con where people always step on each other. So I didn't want it to drag too much. I thought it would have a good look to it if it dragged a little bit, but it's okay if it doesn't. It's actually probably better if it doesn't. Now, I have to steam the thing. So you might be wondering why my mannequin is in the bathroom, because I just said that I needed to steam it in the bathroom. Uh, there is a cosplay hack that I was told about last time I went to MegaCon. Um, if you put your costumes in the bathroom and turn on the shower with the steam and don't put on the fan that takes out the steam, then it'll steam your costumes. Um, this doesn't work with all fabrics. I've had some fabrics that it works with and some fabrics that it doesn't. I'm hoping this is one of those fabrics that it works with. You might be thinking, you're just doing this so that you don't have to go and find your iron. And you would be half correct. I actually went and bought an iron because I couldn't find my iron. But this is a big project and I want to have to iron it as little as possible. So I'm hoping that some of these like pulled threads will come out if I steam it, and then I won't have to like work them out with an iron. And also, I'm hoping that the steaming process will speed up the pull. You know, you're supposed to let skirts hang for like 48 hours or something like that so that they will pull low, and then you can do your hem once you've figured out how all of it will pull. I'm hoping that the steaming process will speed that up because I don't want to wait 48 hours and I probably won't. So either the steaming process is going to speed that up or I'm just going to have a wonky hem. And no, I have no basis for thinking that the steaming process would speed up a uh, fallen hem, but we'll see how it goes. All right, so I lied a little bit. I did not, in fact, go and mow my lawn. I instead put sleeves onto my bodice piece. I have not attached the bodice. I have not attached the bodice piece to the skirt yet. Probably should before letting the skirt hang, but I have to do something with the front here in order for it to be stable enough to be able to hold it closed. So I didn't want to attach it until I had decided what exactly I needed to do. But I went ahead and I put the sleeves on, and you may recall that the sleeve was a little too big in the mock-up. Instead of futzing with trying to make it smaller so that it'd fit better, I actually just wound up gathering the shoulder a little bit so that it would be the right size. I did that for two reasons. One, I didn't feel like trying to make it so the seam fit perfectly. And two, it gives me a little bit of extra space in this shoulder here if I made it a little too small, because this fabric is very slippy and futzy, and I'm pretty sure that I made the skirt too big because this mannequin is actually too big for me, and that skirt is too big for the mannequin. So I think the skirt might be a little too big because of the futziness of the fabric. And so I'm not really sure how any of this project is going to fit anymore. So I just wanted to make sure that I had some extra space in the shoulder just to make sure that I could actually, fit into it.
Okay, so I'm kind of annoyed. So I plan on finishing the hem of the base gown for Aragorn's coronation with this material. This material is horse hair braid. I mean, it's synthetic, so it's not actually horsehair, but it's this thick kind of material, not thick. It's this stiff kind of material that people use so that your fabric will kind of have a little bit of volume. It won't wrinkle into itself because this material doesn't really want to bend. So it'll do this kind of looping thing before it'll bend. So I wanted to give the base gown this horsehair braid just to give it a little bit of extra volume without using a cage skirt, which is really the only way to get some good volume unless I put a whole bunch of underskirts under it. Now, in the 15th century, which is where I'm kind of basing this dress on, I don't believe they had cage skirts. I think they just kind of let them hang. And based on the Lord of the Rings movies, I highly doubt that they had cage skirts. They might have had an underskirt or two, but their fabrics just didn't look like they were very voluminous. So this is all of the volume I'm gonna have. This is 5 yards of it. Turns out I need 13 yards of it, maybe more, depending on the measurements and stuff. So I went ahead and ordered more of this. I ordered 10 yards of it just in case. You can always use extra for other projects. And Joann's charged me. And then I did not put my order through. So currently I'm out the money and they haven't put my order through. So I'm in a fight with them and on standby with the dress because I can't do anything more. Well, technically I can. I could work on the bodice a little bit, but you know, when that one thing happens, you get all stressed out and that one thing happens that just messes everything up and you just don't want to do it anymore. So I'm gonna put the dress to the side. I still have a couple of weeks. Today is Sunday and the video for this dress is actually supposed to come out next Friday. So I do have a couple of weeks to finish the dress. So I think I'm just gonna put it to the side and deal with it later.
Guess what just arrived in the mail? Unfortunately, I had to get the black rather than the white, but like I think the black will actually go better with the dress because it's a darker color. Um, but it's supposed to be covered anyway, so hopefully none of it will be visible. Although I'm a little concerned I might have to make some of it visible in the back because it still didn't get much longer in the back. So my plan for today is to take the bodice off of the mannequin and get it ready for attaching to the skirt, which really just means finishing the front edges so that I can attach it to the skirt. And then once it's attached to the skirt, I'll make sure that my mannequin is the right height. And then I can go around the bottom of the dress and just kind of mark where I'm going to have the hem sit.
Bum ba I got my new iron and I'm actually using it. Yay! Except that I chose to use it in a horrible place, and so my executive producer wanted to come and look at it, which she could not because it's hot. Alright, so what I did first is I tried to fold in this front part because I needed to finish the front so I could attach it to the skirt. Unfortunately, the seam was too small of an allowance. I meant to give it like an inch allowance, but I only gave it half an inch like everything else. So the iron wasn't really putting a crease in at all, and it really just didn't seem like it was doing anything for me, so I might have given up and just started pinning everything and sewing it later by hand because I hate myself. I am going to use a felling stitch, which Bernadette Banner explains so much better, but it's really just taking as little stitches as I can from the front fabric so that I can attach the back fabric to it without it being visible on the front.
So I'm regretting not ironing it beforehand. I thought it was not working correctly with the iron. But this is the side that I ironed beforehand, and it got a little bit wet while I was carrying the iron, so it's okay that it's darker, it's just water. This is the side that I did not iron beforehand, and so it didn't want to quite turn like it was supposed to. So it's fine, everything's fine. But I have my shirt piece is hemmed, or the front is hemmed, the rest is not. So what I need to do now is iron it again, and then I can attach it to the skirt. So first we're gonna iron it, and I went ahead and moved into the room that my cats are not allowed into because that was stressful. So I had to stop to feed my cats because they were demanding at my door that it was dinner time. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish pinning the skirt together. And then I realized I completely forgot to put the pockets together. And actually, now that I think about it, I have to do that before I do the skirt because you're supposed to attach the pockets by sewing the ribbon to the waistband, which would be the part between the skirt and the bodice. So I suppose I should do that first.
What you will need for making a pocket is ruler, some scissors, and your hand. And then to find where your pocket is actually supposed to be so that you can measure the hole that you need to attach it to. Then I put a line that was that length of the hole, and then I decided that I actually didn't like that it was on that side, so I decided to put it on the other side. Then I just kind of decided to make the pocket this big. Now, the reason that you needed your hand was so that you could measure and see if your hand would fit inside of the pocket, but I entirely forgot to do that. So we're just gonna move on to putting on a seam allowance. Now for the pockets, I'm actually going to use a French seam just so that any excess seam would be surrounded and I wouldn't have threads coming out. So I'm actually putting in a 3/4 inch seam allowance everywhere except for the front, which is going to attach to the skirt, and that got a 1/2 inch seam allowance. And once it's all cut out, and I've actually made sure to mark where the stitching needs to start and end because I put the pattern piece on the side that I was not originally going to sew together. For French seams, you're actually supposed to put the wrong sides together first because then you're going to turn it inside out and sew it again with the right sides together. However, I forgot that with a pocket, you generally want the fashion side to be on the inside. So I should have sewn it first with the shiny sides together and then turned it inside out so that the dull sides were on the outside of the pocket. I almost forgot to put in the ribbon. Now this ribbon does not at all match the fabric that I'm using, but honestly it's what I had and it's not going to be visible anyway because its only purpose is to attach the pocket to the waistband so that the pocket doesn't pull weirdly. Now we sew it all together, cut off the excess, flip it inside out, and sew it together again. So I actually decided to hand sew the pocket in its place because I didn't want to deal with my sewing machine and a pocket hole, so here I am. But if you're going to do that, make sure you use a stronger stitch, like a back stitch, that's actually going to be able to keep the strain if you put anything heavy into this pocket, especially since it's a big pocket. Alright, so this video is getting a lot longer than I meant it to be, but we're getting through it. We're almost there. So right now all I'm doing is attaching the horsehair braid via pins so that I can sew them on. I had to try a couple of different methods of doing this, but eventually what I found was that that one part that the back dress is about 2 inches from the floor. So I measured each seam and each center part of the panels 2 inches from the floor, and then I just worked the horsehair braid between these pins so it actually kind of did like this wonky wave thing, but I think in the end it made it look straighter. As you can see, I keep putting it back and checking it. I do really like the look so far of the horsehair braid, even just pinning it on, because it's actually holding the volume rather than just letting it fall. You can see the side that has the horsehair braid is a lot more voluminous than the side that does not. Horrible angles aside, I stitched this on with a zigzag stitch so that if it needed to, it could stretch. I stitched it at the top because my plan was to flip the horsehair braid upward and then surround the fabric around it and fell that into place. This is the wrong thing to do. I measured the horsehair braid based on it in this orientation. When you flip it upwards, the horsehair braid becomes too long for the amount of skirt there is. Now, if it had been like a totally straight skirt, it would have been fine, but this is not a totally straight skirt. It has a cone kind of shape to it. So it isn't super noticeable, but it is wrong. Now to cut off the excess and hem the fabric using a fell stitch if my little assistant here will allow me to share the spotlight with him. I think the answer is no.
Alright, it's done! As you can see, I did put a finishing around the collar of the dress that's very much based off of the red shirt that Aragorn wears. I'll put a picture closer because I don't want to get that close with this low cut of a dress. But there is a zigzag leather piece that I hand sewed on. Unfortunately, I didn't get any film of that because a lot of it I did at work, and then the rest of it I just didn't want to take the time to bring out my camera and actually film it because I was so running out of time. It is the morning of my deadline and I've got 2 hours to edit the film and I'm still filming, so I was running out of time. I was able to get it fully hemmed, as you can see, but I did not iron it, so the hem is flipping up like it's not supposed to, but we'll hopefully be able to iron that out. I do like that the hem is more voluminous. It's not like falling just straight down. But all in all, I look like a hot mess. This dress feels to me very costumey, in the sense that it's like ill-fitted and very simple, which I want it to be simple, but you know, if it's gonna be simple, it's supposed to be well-fitted to show off how good you are. But I'm an amateur, so it's not surprising that mine is both simple and not well made, but I'm learning, so here we go. So again, I haven't ironed it. There is some wrinkles in it that need to be ironed out, but I ran out of time, so I did not have enough time to iron it. My sleeve or my armhole, I'm not really sure which one, is too small, so like if I move my arms, like my upper arms any further than where they currently are, my shoulder falls down. And if my shoulder falls down, so does the bodice, and that is not a good thing. So originally when I tried this on the first time in a video that has apparently gone missing, don't know where that went, I complained about that same issue, and I had thought maybe I would just add on some embroidered piece just to make the collar longer. I thought maybe that would help it stay on, but then I remembered when I did that with the morning gown, which actually required the embroidered piece, it actually made the collar worse because the embroidered lace just wanted to be straight, so the curve was not there and it just kept making it fall worse. And apparently I just always will have this issue that I cannot figure out how to make a sleeve that will not pull it off of my shoulders. So if you know how to do that or could suggest something for me to look at, then I would greatly appreciate that. But for now, what I did instead is I saw this thing that's called fashion tape that you're supposed to attach to your dress and just attach it to your skin. It's not currently working that well because I can only get the front, I cannot reach the back. And as you can see, my corset is very visible. And because the back is pulling out still, the front is also being pulled out. Hopefully, if I have somebody else to help me get the back, because I can't get the back on my own, then hopefully it'll fix the mess. If not, the bodice of this dress is not really supposed to be visible. There's gonna be armor on top of it and possibly even an overdress. So it's not the end of the world that I'm not happy with the bodice of this dress. Now, there is one thing I'm not happy about, which I can't show you because it's off camera and I can't move the camera any further back because I don't have enough room in my house. So, the hem of my skirt is indeed too short. It is right at my ankles, unfortunately, and that means that I'm gonna have to find some shoes to wear. Like, originally I wanted it to drag, and then was like, well, maybe if it doesn't drag, it'll be okay, because then it'll at least be touching the ground or just show a little tiny bit. I don't want it to really show my feet. Well, unfortunately, here we are, my feet are showing. So it's too short. That was what I was actually expecting once I realized that I made that triangle piece too short. Disappointing, very, very disappointing, but it is what it is. So other than that, I am happy enough with it that I can move on to the next stage. Because again, this is not like, I would not wear this dress by itself like I would with some of my other costume pieces, but this is good enough that it can be underneath the rest of the costume and you won't really see it. It is a little disappointing though to have gone through all that work and then to not be happy with the end, but I think it's a good thing to publish things that you aren't happy with as well as things that you are happy with, not only for content, because that's what everybody's gonna say, oh, you just wanted something to post for content, but just to show that failure is okay. I mean, this isn't a fail. I'm not happy with it, but it's not a fail. I can still use it, so, but it's not perfect, and I am a little bit of a perfectionist, so posting this online is very much like, feels like a failure to me. But I think it's a good thing to post, just to be like, it's okay to fail, move on, don't get stuck on it. That's my soapbox soap little rant for the day. So the next thing I'm gonna work on for this dress, not sure, I don't think it'll be the next video, but it might be, so, is a possible overdress, because I had spoken to some other Lord of the Rings costumers and they suggested that if I do a dress like this, it'll be too much red as a skirt, because his isn't very visible. So possibly an overdress just to give a different color down there, maybe the color of his pants, and then also the chainmail overdress that's gonna, although I'm not sure if I want to do the armor first. Well, I suppose it'll be a surprise. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. If you have any suggestions for me that could help me improve, whether it be with YouTube or sewing or any kind of constructive criticisms that you guys might have, perhaps you might have some suggestions on how I can keep my collar up. I would greatly appreciate you put them in the comments below. And if you are interested in seeing the rest of this gown come together, please like and subscribe. I would be happy for you to join us on this journey to see if I can actually get it to work. Bye!